All right. Oh, you didn't start? You didn't stop, did you? Okay.
No.
In today's podcast, we'll be talking about the trade deadline and the players that you should add or drop from your team as a result of the trade deadline. That doesn't really work without a sponsor, does it?
Yeah, and also now I'm confused. So when are we going to bring the SeatGeek thing in?
We'll just talk about them like after the first couple of minutes.
Okay. But no, that was fine. I thought your opening was fine otherwise.
All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fantasy Not Sports. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fantasy
Hold on. I forgot. The one reason why it was really hard to edit the last one we did so many takes, we left like no pause at all between like one take and the next.
Okay.
So let's give me like a 5 second of silence and then start.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast. In today's show, we're going to be talking about the NBA trade deadline and discussing players to add or drop as a result. Daniel, what's going on, my man?
Not much, man. Good to be back. We had 1 week off.
And, it was kind of a fun All-Star break, to be honest. I thought
it ebbs and flows, my friend. Ebbs and flows. There were some some very exciting moments, and there also were some very dull and not interesting moments, I should say.
What could you have possibly not liked about the All-Star break?
The All-Star game itself, I thought was horrific. I thought it was. I mean, normally the last quarter, at least the last 6 minutes.
What's your expectation going into the All-Star game?
What do you mean? As I was saying, the last quarter, typically the last quarter, or at least the last 5 to 6 minutes, teams actually play some defense, and there was just zero defense at all. So that was frustrating. I wanted to see. It's fun to see when you have like LeBron legitimately guarding Stephen Curry, or you're just really good matchups like that. That was a little disappointing to see.
I think my expectations for the game itself are so low that I would have a hard time actually being disappointed. And I thought I had a little bit of fun rooting for him to get to 200 points.
Yeah, I know. Some other people have said that too. I just couldn't get on that. Maybe I'm more old school. I just I'm
you're
still
just so pessimistic.
No, I'm still used to the back of the day when you had Jordan and all those guys. Those last 6 minutes, man, it was a real competitive game. It was fun to watch, and this was like just a layup line or dunk line or 3-point open 3-pointers. So
there were a lot of 3-pointers.
Yeah. So for me, Sunday sucked, but Saturday was awesome.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the game, but again, my expectations for the actual game are pretty low. And I would never sit down to watch that game. But you're right. Saturday was a lot of fun. I watched pretty much that whole thing. 3-point contest was a lot of fun, of course.
Well, all of it was fun. Even the
dunk contest
the skills contest was funny and interesting. I thought the 3-point contest.
I thought the skills contest was excellent, didn't you?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was fun watching the big guys, go up against the little guys.
My favorite part was how excited all the other big guys got for Karl Anthony Towns winning.
Well, especially it was cool to see all the Kentucky guys, especially rush the floor to hug him.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And shows you how good Karl Anthony Towns is.
He's skilled. He's got skills.
There's no question now. I thought the only sort of disappointing part was for me, even though it was fun to watch, was the 3-point shootout. I would give it like a B+. It was fun, but I so badly wanted to see Steph Curry get 33 points. And just make all but 2 shots.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think the expectations were so high on him. There was,
right.
It's almost in a way a good thing he lost, because then maybe next year expectations will be a little lower for him. But
I didn't even mind if he lost. I just wanted to see one instance where he just got on fire and hit 15 straight 3-pointers. And there was one round where he hit 2 straight racks or something, which was fun, but it didn't quite get to the level I was hoping it would get to.
What year did they change it and make these weird rules with the money balls?
That was a couple of years back.
Like that I hate. That I don't like that at all. Are you a fan of that? You can like pick which rack the money balls are on.
It had some strategy. I mean, I just assume them not do any money balls.
I
But if you're gonna do
want,
some,
I want to keep it how it's always been. One money ball, one rack. Dang it. You know?
I actually think because I've competed in a 3-point contest, and I think there's a big difference between.
All right, hold on. Where have you competed in a 3-point contest?
No, our high school used to have sort of like an all-star, not all-star game, but like an all-star type activities, like a dunk contest and a 3-point shootout and that sort of thing.
You guys had a dunk contest as well?
Yeah.
Wow. So like, so I'm assuming you wait. Oh no, you're tall, so you could probably dunk.
To be honest, this won't surprise me, but there aren't a lot of people in southeastern Idaho that can actually dunk.
So did you win?
So there was only like 2 or 3 of us each year that could actually dunk. I won 2 years.
Wait,
I didn't win my sophomore year, but I won my junior and senior year.
So I am currently talking to a slam dunk champion?
You bet, man.
This is wow. This is awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate discussing this on the podcast, but it is true.
So like what did you do? What was like your go-to?
I think my winning dunk, probably the one most everyone got excited about was
the windmill.
No, I actually had one of the a manager from the freshman team sit on a folding chair, and I jumped over him.
All right, shut up.
No, the thing about jumping over people is, and I think that this was true unless you're Aaron Gordon, but like same thing's true with Blake Griffin jumping over the car. If you put things in the right place, you don't have to jump any higher to jump over something. It just optically makes it look a little more impressive.
Hold on. Do we have any video footage of this?
No, I'm sure there isn't any video of it. That was before I went to high school when like nobody had cell phones.
Yeah, but like me too. But still, people took videos of the games and stuff.
I have to check with my mom. I don't know. I don't think we have anything like this.
Of you jumping over a student manager in a chair and throwing it down.
Yeah.
And then did you like raise the roof, or what was your? Did you have like a celebration?
No.
Did the crowd go crazy like the NBA All Stars do?
It was a little more low key than that.
First of all, I could talk about this the entire show with the questions I have for you on this.
How many rounds? Personally, I think there was like 3 rounds. I think it might have been 2 rounds, but like I think the first round was basically like 15 guys lined up, and 10 of them or 12 of them proved that they couldn't actually dunk the ball. So all you had to do to get past the first round was to dunk the ball.
And just so our listeners remembers, how tall are you exactly again?
I'm 6'5".
So you're like Levine's height almost.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is fascinating.
And then in the next round, I think you got 2 dunks. I think
you made it through round 1, and then were you nervous?
Well, see, my sophomore year, I made a big mistake because I tried to do some cool dunks in the first round and I missed, and so I didn't even get to round 2. So the next year, I just did like a reverse dunk or something. It was pretty standard to just get moved along. There is some strategy in the dunk contest.
Interesting. So wait, why didn't you win your junior and senior year then as well?
No, I won my junior and senior year. I didn't win my sophomore year because in the first round, I tried to do a really cool dunk and I missed it. And so I didn't make it into the second round.
All right.
Or at least what I thought was a cool dunk. I don't really remember what it was.
You're a 2-time champion.
2-time.
So could you do it like a legitimate, like, what was like the hardest dunk that you could do?
The most and I think you see this in the All-Star game too, because like I thought Aaron Gordon's dunk that he did where he pulled it behind his head and then went between his legs and then dunked it was really impressive and difficult, but I don't think anybody appreciated it.
Well, no, because that one's like you have to, unless you can actually slow that one down for the judges, you can't. It's happening too fast.
So the most impressive dunk I ever did, which nobody really thought was impressive when I did it, was I went on the baseline and I jumped from the block on one side and came around and dunked it on the other side, which, is pretty difficult if you think about it, but apparently just watching it wasn't very impressive. Nobody was too excited about that one.
You basically did like a kiss the rim. Michael Jordan's Kiss the Rim from like '87.
I am 100% sure that mine looked 100 times worse than his.
I would, if any of our listeners can put your head, your face on like Aaron Gordon when he's doing one of those dunks, or Zach LaVine when he's like flying from the free throw line. I think we need a listener to do that.
Yeah, it would be fun.
That's crazy, man. Like the thing is, like my high school had actually the 1 year we made state when I was in high school, we had a pep rally, and at the pep rally we had a 3-point contest. We didn't have a dunk contest because I think only one person on our team could dunk, and that was like barely.
Right. I mean, that's the same as ours.
It'd be like only like 50% of the time would he even be successful. So we had a 3-point contest though. And me, I was not a 3-point shooter. I was known for my quickness and my agility and my ball handling domination. But I won the 3-point contest. So I do know I also know what it's like to participate.
Yeah. So do you agree with, so I always thought shooting off the rack was much different than being passed to. I did terribly in the 3-point shootout, and I blamed it on shooting off the rack. I thought if somebody could have been passing balls to me, I would have had a better shot.
I mean, yeah, I don't think that.
So I don't know if that's sort of the thing that, hurts Curry. Like Curry's never used to just picking up a ball off to the right side of him and shooting the ball up.
I don't know. I don't think that should make that big of a difference. Plus, these guys
also, I think you can attest to this if you've ever done one of these, like trying to get, 25 shots up in 60 seconds is that's exhausting.
I think we didn't do as many as the actual guys do. I think we did like one ball fewer per rack or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
At least I think that's what we did. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not buying any of your excuses. You're trying to make excuses for Steph Curry. He lost. He choked. I didn't choke, but whatever. He lost.
No, I would have been happy if Klay Thompson did it. I just wanted to see one of them just make 95% of their shots. And so to me, the shooting contest, 3-point shooting was a B+. Like it was good, but not great. But the dunk contest, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Agree. And
I think the best format for the dunk contest is almost like a horse thing where like somehow it turns into this guy versus this guy and they're just going back and forth with dunks. And that's what made it so awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I'm not. Yeah, I don't know if there's ever
like a dunk contest.
No, I know I did. I don't know what the right form. I mean, they keep every year. It seems like there's a different format, and even this year, it seemed like some people didn't even know like, what's the like is it just a tie? They keep going. Like no one really knew.
It just has to be the final round has to be 2 guys taking turns doing a dunk.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that lends itself to the most compelling dunk contest possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. But also, Aaron Gordon should have won. Don't you agree?
I agree. Yeah.
Like he had I think he had the 2 best dunks.
The one where he pulled it under his butt after jumping over the mascot is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like even in my when I used to could jump, trying to put the ball between your legs, one leg, much less 2 legs, and jumping is not an easy thing to do.
Well, no, and that's the one I think like didn't ESPN like science or come out and say like if that jump would have been in the Olympics in the high jump, Aaron Gordon would have won the bronze medal.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. So,
and to do that while you're pulling a basketball off of some furry mascot. Actually, the other one where they were rotating on the hoverboard, that was pretty impressive. Just the way that he scooped it into the rim.
Yeah. No, I agree. The one also, like I am starting as they were doing these, I'm starting to wonder. Like first, like how much are they practicing these dunks, and then secondly, especially like the more difficult ones, like over the mascot.
If I was Aaron Gordon spent some time, I think he put in the time preparing for that.
If I was like an NBA coach, like I would not want my players doing that.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a serious injury in one of those.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like most of the time when people are jumping over things, it seems a lot more dangerous than it actually is because like if you strategically place things, then you're not doing any extra jumping and you're probably clearing them pretty well. Jumping over an 8-foot mascot is a whole different thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm with you because like when Blake Griffin jumped over the car, that was total BS.
he could have done that exact same dunk without the car there, and it would, he had what, 4 feet of clearance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm with you for the most part.
But an 8-foot mascot rotating is that's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
I think the best solution I heard, because I can see why they were giving Levine all the 50s. Like I don't discredit for them for that. I think that each judge needs an 11. You get 111 per dunk contest.
Or you get like some type of special power grade.
Yeah, like I'm giving out my 11 for this one dunk. I don't get to use it anymore.
I don't even think it should be 11. It should be like 1 million. You get to give out a million. That dunk was so cool. There was 1 million.
Yeah.
What else do I want to say about that? Something else. There was another point I wanted to make about the. No. Oh, nah, I can't remember. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Okay.
Dang it, man. I had such an excellent point that you were going to love.
All right. I guess speaking of things that had a lot of anticipation and expectations, the trade deadline.
Man. Now that was depressing. To lead off, you said, we had some things that were, or I think I said we had some things that were exciting and then some things that were not. The trade deadline, what a disappointment.
You were not happy about the trade deadline.
I was actually, I don't know, maybe pissed is a little bit too strong, but all week, especially all day today, I'm getting all geared up. You're hearing about all these big names, and I wasn't naive enough to think, most of them were going to happen, but I was thinking that there would be at least one trade that would be somewhat exciting to talk about, and I don't think we really had any. I mean, we have some that we'll get into in the show that are somewhat relevant for fantasy wise, but in terms of like real life players, I mean, when you tell me Tobias Harris is the best player that was moved at the deadline, like that, to me, that's a letdown, especially compared to last year.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like last year was such an exciting trade deadline. There was so much action. It's almost like there was no chance this thing was going to live up to what happened last year.
Yeah, and then for me also, it was a tough week because I'm what's my favorite team? Miami Heat. So then thinking about Miami's going to make a nice move, probably to try to get Dwight or Al Horford, and then going with Bosch, just with getting the blood clots again, that not only destroys their season, but just destroyed giving them any legitimate shot to make a move at the trade deadline.
Yeah,
so that's
not to mention, a little worried about Chris Bosch going forward.
A little worried. You should be, and everyone should be very worried. Like his career is now in jeopardy. And there's, I think as we all say, like I'm not a doctor. I don't think you are either. Although you are an actuary, which is very difficult. So maybe you're a doctor too. But
I am not a doctor.
Like there's so many. I've read so many different medical views on this. But so the thing is, the ultimate question right now is whether he can get back to the NBA ever. Is he gonna? Is it like how? Because he had to go on blood thinners now because his blood clots have recurred in his calf.
Right.
So if you're on blood thinners, though, you can't play NBA basketball.
And I think isn't the biggest thing is you can't really like fly around on jet planes all the time, or is that not true?
Well, I mean that's
isn't there something with the altitude and the blood thinners and isn't that really the issue?
Well, that's not only the blood thinners don't actually have a.
Or is that the blood clot part of it? I don't know.
Like being in high altitude and flying and all that helps contribute to a blood clot.
Gotcha.
Especially being very tall, and that's also why it's interesting. Miami, like 15 out of their last 17 games were on the road, and they did a ton of flying. This last month or so. You wonder if anyone in the Heat organization or if like Bosch's or anyone on his team is like, hey guys, why don't you let sit me out or let me not go on one of these flights? Because it's if he was going to get a blood clot, although I guess the chance for recurrence is like 10%. I think he said going into this year, if you don't have like a certain gene, so it was rare that he was going to get a blood clot anyway. But the fact that he got one coming after all these long road trips and playing all these road games, I'm sure that played a role, taking all these flights. But getting back to the blood thinners argument, so now he has to go back on blood thinners to treat the blood clots. And if you're on blood thinners, you can't play an NBA basketball. Now, some people have said that once you get a recurrence, some medical people have said once you get a recurrence of blood clots, you may have to be on blood thinners for the remainder of like your life.
Right.
So if that's the case, you're talking like career over. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Now, so other people, doctors have said, in some cases, you can just take blood thinners just to treat the blood clot, which can take as little as like 3 to probably 6 weeks would be the being a somewhat of a safe
best case scenario
option, right? It would be 6 weeks. But there's also other doctors. Then the third view is that you have to really be on blood thinners for about 6 months, and then the season would be over. So basically, I think we have 3 scenarios, Mark. I think we have, and again, I'm not a doctor, so this is all the stuff that I read from all the Miami beat writers, all the Miami papers, listening to all the guys down there who seem to be plugged in. But also, Bosch's team hasn't spoken yet, and there's a lot of information we don't know. So I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's either going to be he'll be out probably 6 weeks. But I do not think that will be the scenario, but I guess that's one possibility. The one that I think he'll be out for the rest of the season. And then the harshest, the more severe, and the worst one for Chris Bosh and anyone who likes to watch him play basketball is if he's on blood thinners for the rest of his life, and then I don't think he can play NBA basketball again. Right. So that's what we're dealing with, and it's scary stuff, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not to mention in real life, I mean, just in getting away from that, Chris Bosh's health. It destroys Miami. It's just a killer for that team.
Well, it's hard to plan for, I would imagine, if you're Pat Riley and you're going, do we count on Chris Bosh or do we not count on him being here?
Well, especially you're talking. I mean, he comes out 3-4 days before the trade deadline. I mean, the worst possible time ever. It's just and right now I think they don't know because they're still waiting for the doctors to let them know what's going to be the prognosis going forward. But just a disaster for Miami. And if you own Bosh, I've been telling people to hold on to Bosh. And then I think by the end of this week, he's going to come out and kind of tell you what the doctors have.
Yeah. I don't expect him to be cagey about this one. I think we'll get a clear resolution.
Right. So, but I do
hold on to him for a couple of days, and I think we'll get a clear picture of what's going to happen with him.
Yep. Agree, but difficult.
All right, Daniel, let's jump into the trade deadline. But first, I want to share with our listeners a new sponsor of the podcast, and hopefully a pretty valuable offer for our listeners. I want to start off by asking you, Daniel, if you've ever been frustrated by trying to buy online tickets to sporting events or concerts.
Dude, I needed to buy, speaking of my Miami Heat, they're coming to town, to my city, to play the Knicks February 28th, and I needed to buy tickets. And I was shocked at how many sites and how difficult it can be to buy tickets online.
I know your computer aptitude is not at an expert level, so I'm sure there's some complications. My personal frustration is always when they try to tack on one of those convenience fees at the very end, where you think you've got a good deal, and then they say convenience fees, or sometimes when it just says fees and you've got to pay an extra 10 or 15%. Well, I've got a solution for you, my friend. You need to try SeatGeek. They've made it easier than ever to buy and sell sports and concert tickets online. For example, Daniel, when I went to Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, I really wanted to go see Blake Griffin in person. I hadn't seen him. I really wanted to go see Paul George in person. I had a night to myself. And so I went online. I tried a couple of different places. I got frustrated, and I went to SeatGeek. And it was really, really cool because they had a marker on all of the seats in the stadium that were for sale. And then they had a score next to each ticket. So a score of 100 was the most awesome ticket possible, and a score of 0 was a really bad ticket. So I didn't have to do I'm always one of those people that does a lot of research, and I want to make sure I'm getting a good deal and I'm not overpaying. And it was really easy for me to just go in and say, hey, here's a good ticket. I'm going to buy this one. It was super simple to check out. There was no hidden fees, and I got my ticket. I went to the game. I made some friends with the guys that were in the seats next to me. I got to watch Paul George basically take down the Clippers by himself, which was a lot of fun. But it was super, super simple. So here's the thing to remember, Daniel. If you go on SeatGeek for the first time and you use the promo code Mark, which is my first name, MARC, you can get SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. $20 is a pretty good deal.
Dude, I'm going to use this for my Miami Heat at the Knicks tickets.
Yeah. You can also use it for, Broadway tickets. If you want to go check out a Broadway show, concert tickets, anything like that. And again, research all done for you. Super, super easy to check out. So go check out SeatGeek. All right, Daniel, let's jump into the trade deadline. Would it be best if we just run through all the trades and we can give some comments as we go?
I think that makes sense.
So first deal that happened, you kind of already alluded to this one. Tobias Harris got traded to Detroit for Brandon Jennings and Ersan Ilyasova. Take it away, Dan. What'd you think?
This was if there was it's hard to pick a trade winner when you have like all these, small, modest-sized trades. But I think Detroit probably might be the trade winner. They got some decent players. And Tobias.
What doesn't make sense to me, because the other trade they made was Deontay Montiunas and Marcus Thornton for a first-round draft pick. So it's like they got Tobias Harris for no draft picks, and they got a hurt center. Like Montiunas isn't playing currently. He's injured. His contract is up at the end of the year, and they had to give up a first-round pick for him. So if I'm Orlando, I'm really kicking myself for not trying to get more out of Tobias Harris.
Well, I think if you're Orlando, you need to kick Scott Skiles in the head. I was telling you this. I'm originally from Wisconsin, from Milwaukee, and so Scott Skiles was the coach of the Bucks when they had. I think they drafted Tobias Harris.
I believe so, yeah.
And for whatever reason, like it was well known throughout the organization, or at least the media there. I don't know the specifics, but Scott Skiles, he would never play Tobias Harris. He hated him. He would get on his case in practice. He just loathed the guy, and no one knew why. We saw him then get traded to Orlando, and then he was a pretty good player, and actually has a lot of talent. So it's just so the second that Scott Skiles got hired in Orlando, I said to kind of some of my friends, not even somewhat, I guess, half jokingly, there goes Tobias Harris's career in Orlando, and here we go. I mean, I for whatever reason, just Scott Skiles didn't like the guy, and I think most of it was defensively, was the reason, at least in Milwaukee, that people were saying, and I think that was.
Well, I think it was because he was a rookie personally, but maybe there is something more to it now after watching him get traded. I think it's going to be kind of interesting when Orlando is trying to hit the salary floor next year. And they gave up Tobias Harris for nothing.
Well, and the other thing, though, Tobias Harris had a pretty reasonable contract as well.
That's what I'm saying. They're not going to get a better value than Tobias Harris in free agency, and probably they're not going to get, I think that they're not going to be able to use all their cap space. So now they're going to be trying to make trades to get to the salary floor when they could have just kept Harris.
Yeah, and I was hearing, one of the Orlando beat writers saying that, they're going to try to pull the Grant Hill, Tracy McGrady formula and try to, because they freed up. I think they have $44 million in cap now or something, so they're going to try to go after two. They can bring in almost two max stars next year. And this guy was saying, with the lure of Orlando, they think that the front office thinks they'll be able to do it. And I was like, the lure of Orlando, besides Miami or
yeah, I mean, that's all well and good, right? They want to get free agents, but don't you wait until you have them signed before you trade Tobias Harris? Somebody will take him off your hands for nothing in the off season. So wait until then.
Yeah, no. To me, it makes zero sense whatsoever. I think it was completely because Skiles, for whatever reason, does not want to play or doesn't want Tobias Harris on his team, and it was
I think 9 times out of 10 they're going to regret this trade.
Well, yeah, and at least they should have waited closer to the deadline, because then maybe they could have got a first-round pick.
Right. From a fantasy perspective, do you care? I mean, Brandon Jennings was on our list of guys hey, watch and see if this guy gets traded. You might want to pick him up. Do you care now that he's on Orlando with Peyton and Oladipo there?
No, I really don't. I mean, Brandon Jennings, what's the worst part of his game? Defense. It's just
You had me stunned there. I didn't know where to go with that.
well,
there was a couple places you could go.
is it bad shot selection? Is it over dribbling? Yeah, you're right. There's a lot.
Is it
a lot
finishing at the rim?
There's actually a lot. There's a lot of ways to go there. And by the way, you remember when he put up that 55 points as a rookie, and everyone was thinking he was going to be like the best player in that class? And wow, how downhill it's been like for the rest of his that was the peak of his career.
Yeah,
it was like 10 games into his rookie year when he put up that 50 point game.
Yeah,
which is pretty crazy. But no, I'm not interested in him at all. I think there'll be like an occasional game where he'll get some minutes and he'll put up get hot and he'll put up some nice numbers. But for the most part, I do not.
What about Ersan? You care about Ersan, or you pick him up in the standard league?
Not in the standard league, probably not. Like I think the big winner is the guy who won the dunk contest. I think it's. I know we've talked about him on the show, but it opens up a lot of more minutes for Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon, I think all along he was could play the 3 better than he could play the 4. So I think
I thought that's why it made sense for him to be playing with Tobias Harris. Actually, I like that combination of those two as combo 3 and 4s.
Yeah,
but that's obviously not an option anymore.
Yeah. So, but I do think this now is going to give Aaron Gordon some more minutes, so he can improve on his numbers, and he's becoming standard league relevant. Me and him have again, me and you have differed a little bit on what we think his upside is, but I think now he's going to see an uptick in usage, an uptick in numbers. And Ersan is going to be interesting. Like again, he's not great at defense either, not known for his defensive prowess. And he gets bullied around there playing the 4, but he's a decent size stretch 4, and I could see him getting some minutes in Orlando, and it's all going to be does he fit in with Styles? Who knows? Styles is very hard to predict.
Orlando came out after the trade and said we're keeping our core 6 guys intact, and I thought that was telling. Their core 6 guys were Vukovic, Oladipo, Fournier, Gordon, Payton, and Hazonia. So I think those are the guys that you should expect to see get the most minutes towards the end of the season. I'm interested to see what they do with Hazonia and Gordon, most specifically with this trade, to see if those guys bump up in minutes at all. I agree with you. I think Gordon is the guy that you'd want to own in a standard league based on this trade. I don't think it's going to go crazy. Like I don't think he's going to be much more than a top 100 player, but still should be ownable in standard leagues as sort of like a 11 points, 9 rebounds type of guy.
And if you could also get
with some defensive stats and a little bit of 3-point shooting in there.
It would be cool though if you could also get extra fantasy point or 2 for endorsement deals. Because he's going to get some more endorsement deals now that he won the dunk contest. So
I actually saw a league format somebody sent to me where extra money was paid out each week for certain achievements. For example, if your team had the most points that week, in a specific week, you would get some of the pot of the league. And the cool one was on the All-Star break. If you had the dunk contest winner, you got some of the pot for that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool setup.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Is anybody else that you're interested in talking about from that trade? I don't think so. All right, Courtney Lee to Charlotte. Courtney Lee got traded to.
Although I guess, Mark, we didn't really talk about how this impacts the Detroit side.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
I think maybe we should talk a little bit about that because first of all, KCP is coming back. I think tomorrow. So before the break, KCP went down with the good groin injury out of the hip between him and Manu Ginobili. Yeah. So KCP is coming back, which makes it's going to hurt Stanley Johnson, who was putting up some okay numbers. But I mean, so Detroit's saying Tobias is going to come off the bench to start, and
for the first 3 games,
right? And they're going to start Anthony Tolliver.
Okay.
I mean, so if you, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Anthony Tolliver's game, but one for DFS purposes, Tolliver is going to be an interesting play for these next few nights. Also, if you want to stream a guy, he's probably going to get around 25 minutes, and he can shoot a little bit. I've seen him have decent games. So if you're looking for threes, maybe you can do a lot.
Bad recommendation at all.
Yeah, you can do a lot worse than that. So he said, don't just snarkle at Anthony Tolliver. He can play a little bit, but ultimately,
snarkle is snarkle a word?
Absolutely, snarkle is a word.
That maybe should be the new name of our podcast.
The Snarkle
podcast.
I'm
all right. No, I agree.
So the question is, I think Tobias obviously is going to be starting there sooner rather than later.
I actually think it might be Stanley Johnson and Tobias Harris sooner rather than later.
So wait, what would the starting lineup be then?
Oh, I mean, I think it's Drummond, Harris, Stanley Johnson, Reggie Jackson, Contavious Caldwell-Pope. And Marcus Morris is your sixth man, along with Monty Eunice and Marcus Thornton. Aaron Baines, Steve Blake, or your other bench guys.
So you're moving Marcus Thornton to the bench. I know. So wait,
Marcus Morris. I'm moving Marcus Morris to the bench.
That's what I mean. You're moving Marcus Morris to the bench.
Yep.
Huh. Interesting.
I think it could happen.
Now you're not worried that Marcus Morris would commit like an assault and like because he's brother of Markieff.
It's always on the table. I don't necessarily expect his minutes to go down that much. I just think that might be the way they play this. Now that they've got a little more scoring punch in the starting lineup with Tobias Harris.
So for fantasy relevance, where do you see if you had to rank the Stanley Johnson, Marcus Morris, Tobias, those guys?
I mean, I think Tobias is clearly the guy that you would want there. I think he's probably a top 75 player like he's been thus far this season. It's not overwhelming stats, but he kind of just does enough for you across the board. I think he probably get you 14 points, 7 rebounds, a steal, and a three-pointer, which is pretty valuable. I think Marcus Morris is on the cusp of fantasy relevance. I think he's probably a stash guy, not a stash guy, a stream option. And I think Stanley Johnson is probably less so of a stream option. Like even as a starter, I'm not interested really in owning him, but I might pick him up here and there in a favorable matchup, or try to target him in DFS on certain nights. But I think Tobias Harris is clearly the guy that you want there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Tobias is a really good fit for Stan Van Gundy's system. So this year, I'm not sure we're going to see the full fruition of what he can be in that system. But I still think the numbers that you read off around 14, 15.7 boards, something like that. I think that with a 3. He's going to get a lot of threes in that offense. So,
and I think Marcus Morris, drops down to like 12 points and 5 rebounds and a 3-pointer or something. And it doesn't sound like that much difference, but there's pretty big drop off there, particularly when you take into account that he's not an efficient scorer. He doesn't shoot well from the field or the line. He doesn't do as well. He doesn't get as many steals or blocks as Tobias Harris, who doesn't get a lot of steals or blocks on his own right, but Marcus Morris is worse there. He's just kind of worse across the board, and I think that makes him sort of just a stream option. And but I would still rather have him than Stanley Johnson. All right, moving on. Next trade. I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time on this one. Courtney Lee went to the Hornets. Grizzlies got PJ Hairston, Chris Anderson, and 4 second-round draft picks. Or excuse me, the Grizzlies got 4 second-round draft picks, and the Heat got Brian Roberts, who they eventually shipped off to Portland.
There were 2 quick funny things about this. One, Courtney Lee is on my starting 5 of just players who get 30 minutes of complete garbage. It's just a waste.
You're not a big fan.
He does some things in real life that are okay. Like he's a pretty good defender, but in terms of like giving you fantasy value, I'm not a fan at all. Like I think he's a guy you'll watch a whole game go by. He'll play 30 minutes, and you look and at the end of the game, you turn to your friend and say, "Damn, why didn't Courtney Lee play?" And then you see he played 32 minutes, and he put up like 4 points and 4 points on 3 shots.
I actually think the only guy in this whole transaction that's worth discussing, and I guess maybe we should also mention that Memphis sent away Jeff Green along with Courtney Lee, so 2 of their prominent role players. Really only got a couple of bit players back, PJ Hairston, Lance Stevenson. It's entirely possible those guys don't play at all or play limited minutes. So I think the interesting guy to talk about here is Mario Chalmers. We mentioned him. You want to be quick on the trigger to pick him up if he finds himself in a more favorable situation.
And look, let's be honest. Matt Barnes too.
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen, what sort of playing time Chalmers gets with Conley still there, but you'd have to assume that he's going to get at least 24 minutes and potentially more, 26, 28, 30 minutes a game if they go that direction. I think you're right. I think Matt Barnes takes a step up in value. and probably both of those guys are worth a speculative add at this point.
Yep. No, I totally agree. Mario Chalmers played a lot of two guard last year for Miami. So him and Mike Conley can play on the floor together at the same time. That's not going to be an issue. I'm a fan of Chalmers' games. When he gets minutes, he's a fantasy point per minute guy. I like his game. Matt Barnes, he's been up and down throughout the course of his career, but I think he's going to get minutes now. I mean, look at their wing players, look at their roster. If he's getting 30 minutes, he's going to be relevant in standard leagues. So he should be picked up probably now.
And I think basically every team in the West is crossing their fingers they get to play Memphis in the playoffs now. I mean, the Memphis team from last year is down Courtney Lee, Jeff Green, and Marc Gasol. They're basically a lame duck, first round and out. I mean, Memphis basically signaled that by trading 2 starters for draft picks and not getting anything really in return.
Yeah. I mean, I got a couple interesting questions on Twitter regarding Chris Anderson and Lance Stevenson. Chris Anderson's body is just broken. I just can't envision his body being able to hold up.
Do you think it's too much ink? Like he inserted too much ink into his body and it kind of shut him down?
I do wonder if because we haven't seen him naked. Like if he was naked, do you think he has how much of his body is just skin without ink, without tattoos?
You said the fact that you haven't seen him naked like you're disappointed about it.
Well, no, the only reason I said that is I'm not disappointed, let me tell you. But every part that you see, I'm like, whenever I look at him, I'm like, he can't get another tattoo. There's no room for any more tattoos. His body is completely filled with tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said I haven't seen him naked. So maybe he has another, he could get another one if he was bare skinned. But he must have the most tattoos in the NBA, right?
He would be my odds-on favorite if we were trying to guess.
But I don't think his body can hold up. I can't envision him making it more than 16, 18 minutes a game. So I'm not a fan of adding him in any format.
Yeah. The next trade that happened, which was sort of a head scratcher to me, again, it involved Orlando. The Cleveland Cavaliers got Channing Frye and a second-round pick. The Magic got a second-round pick and Jared Cunningham, so it was pretty much a straight salary dump for them and in just getting rid of Channing Frye.
Wait, so why didn't you understand this one? Cleveland, they needed shooters.
And Portland got Anderson Varejao and a first-round draft pick for taking on his contract. It sounds like Anderson Varejao is going to be bought out. I didn't understand this because, I mean, Cleveland already has probably the best big shooter in the league in Kevin Love, and they have a hard time utilizing him. So what are they going to do with Channing Frye? They can't play Channing Frye and Kevin Love together.
Yeah, but that's why they have the great Tyronn Lue now to figure out how to utilize Kevin Love.
Oh, I just don't understand what Cleveland is doing. It doesn't make sense how they're going to use Channing Frye in any sort of way. Really, you can't play Love and Frye together, can you? That seems like a non-starter, particularly in the playoffs, which is all I assume they care about is the finals at this point. If Cleveland's making a move, it's for the finals.
Channing Frye's if you look at the defensive, you go to the analytics for his defensive stats, it's actually not that bad. And that was what Scott Skiles' rationale for starting Channing Frye these last, 15 games or so ahead of, Aaron Gordon and those guys was he always would point to his defense. So he's not the worst defender in the league, but it would be a tough lineup playing Love and Frye at the same time.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, it seems like Frye is just a much worse version of what they're trying to use Kevin Love for. And it already seems like in the finals, if they play the Warriors, they're not going to be able to play Kevin Love a full complement of minutes anyway. I can't see Channing Frye getting off the bench in a Warriors Cavaliers series.
I don't know. I guess I want to see how they plan on using him, but it would be cool. I mean, this is what Miami did, right? If you get LeBron, you get Kyrie, and then you have three. Then you spread out the rest of the court with 3 shooters.
Yeah, but you have to be able to – those guys have to play defense. So I would rather put J.R. Smith on the court and play Love and LeBron as your front court guys than play Channing Frye and Kevin Love and LeBron James.
Probably, but I mean, yeah, we'll see.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm interested to see how it comes out. Fantasy impact is very minimal here, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't think it really impacts any of these teams or players. Other than just to mention, there's another guy gone in Orlando. And so, more room for Gordon to get minutes and potentially Hazonia.
Yeah, I mean, because Channing Frye was still getting. I mean, he was starting for like a month or 2 months,
Yeah.
and then he was still getting over 20 minutes a game. So yeah, opens up minutes, shots.
All right, this is one I'm interested to get your take on, Dan. Randy Foye got traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Nuggets got back DJ Augustine, Steve Novak, and 2 second-round draft picks. I don't think Augustine or Novak obviously move the needle in a fantasy sort of way. Does Randy Foye at all move the needle for you if he gets the starting spot in Oklahoma City?
I don't know, man. Like, I've been kind of back and forth. Or initially, I was back and forth on it, but I think I settled into the fact that if you need 3-pointers, maybe you take a flyer on Randy Foye. But I'm not.
It only matters if he gets the starting spot, which is not a sure thing yet.
Yeah.
And then I think he's only becomes maybe a stream option. Like we've seen him have good value in 3-pointers, as you mentioned. That's probably his best category. I think he can also be sort of productive in steals, and he can do okay, like do enough in rebounds and assists that he doesn't kill you there. I don't think in Oklahoma City he could score enough points where that would matter much. And it just feels like what I'm describing is a guy that you pick up and stream once in a while. But I don't think, even in the most favorable circumstances, I don't think he becomes a guy that you'd want to own for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, the reason why I ultimately started leaning towards a guy that I really don't want on my team is when you think about it, he would get a lot of minutes on Denver. I mean, I think this year he's been hurt a lot, or I'm not sure what exactly has been going on. But even when he's been healthy and playing like 30-plus minutes, he was like barely relevant then. So, I'm just not – overall, I'm not too excited over him.
His last 4 games where he played 23 minutes a game, he averaged 6 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists.
Yeah, and so, he's super streaky.
Yeah.
One of the streakiest shooters that I've seen. Man, when he goes on a slump, he goes on like a 2-month-long slump. So, yeah, I'm not a guy that I'm that excited about.
Okay, this might be our last. No, there's a couple more trades here. Markieff Morris got traded to the Washington Wizards for DeJuan Blair, Chris Humphries, and a first-round pick. Do you care about Blair or Chris Humphries?
No.
Do you care about anybody in Phoenix now more than you did before, since Markieff is no longer there?
I mean, man,
your buddy Alex Len, is that?
Well, yeah, but no, Tyson Chandler didn't get traded, so I'm not overly high on Len right now.
Aren't you a little bit surprised that Phoenix didn't do more? I sure am.
I mean, like, we could do a whole show on just like teams that were like pissed at or surprised at all the moves that should have happened. Like Phoenix's roster right now makes 0 sense. Like I'm not like I have no idea what they're doing. You add them to a handful of other teams as well, like Sacramento. Like, good job firing the assistant coach who's like runs the offense for them when they're like top 5 in the league in almost every offensive category, and you don't fire any of the defensive coaches. Nice job, Sacramento.
I'm surprised Sacramento didn't make a move.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There are so many just organizations that are just lost. So, I mean, Phoenix, no, I'm not. Sadly, as long as Tyson Chandler's there and he's going to get minutes, so I mean, Len's a borderline player that I want to.
Yeah, straight. Again, I know that I'm saying this a lot, but I think that just illustrates that not a lot happened at the trade deadline. That's super important. I think he's a stream option.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe John Lure's back in play a little bit now that Markieff's gone. Because again, remember the last week or so before Markieff got traded, he was getting over 30 minutes a game. So now you got John Lure back in play. I think a little bit.
It's worth watching, but I'm not picking up. Like, I guess up to this point, the guy that I'm most interested, like if you're just picking up a guy and hoping they work out, I mean, Tobias Harris was already owned. So is Mario Chalmers the guy to pick up, or Matt Barnes, the 2 best pickups that we've talked about so far? I think so.
God, that's sad.
That's not great. Markieff Morris in Washington. I mean, Markieff Morris was generally owned. I had a couple questions which surprised me about whether I thought they should drop Markieff Morris now. I mean, I don't think that's the general sentiment, but I would suggest doing the opposite of dropping him, which I guess is just holding him. I think a new situation is good for Markieff Morris. I expect him to be the starter there. I think you're going to want to hold on to him.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Washington plays in a very fantasy-friendly, style of game. They're I think they're top 5 in the league in pace. So, he can play the 3 or the 4. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes. He's going to get a lot of shots. So
I think they're going to try to use him as kind of a pseudo small ball 4. I expect him to get at least 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, and John Wall loves to pass. You need someone to pass to.
John Wall will be by far the best point guard he's ever played with, as far as somebody who can set him up and put him in good positions.
Yep.
Like Phoenix has had a lot of good point guards, but they've been more score first type point guards. You think Goran Dragic, Eric Bledsoe, Isaiah Thomas, they're all good players, but they're not John Wall.
Yeah, Brandon Knight as well in there. So I totally agree with you. I think Markieff definitely has some upside here. Now he's crazy, 1, and 2. Washington still has guys like you saw. Nene played well tonight, but Nene, his body always breaks down, and so I'm not sure exactly how many minutes he'll get. I mean, if you had to guess, what would you think? I'm guessing 28 minutes a night, probably.
Who are we talking about? Sorry,
Markieff.
No, I think he's at least 30.
Yeah,
I would be surprised if he's less than 30. I think he's the starter, and I think he's playing there with Marcin Gortat, John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Otto Porter.
Which is a really interesting unit, man, when you think about it. I like that lineup.
I think it goes well with what they're trying to accomplish. I think it makes sense for him to be there.
Yeah.
We sort of touched on this trade already, but Jeff Green got traded to the Clippers. I think we've talked about this from the Grizzlies' perspective. I don't expect much from Lance. He's not really fantasy relevant anyway. Jeff Green
you don't think Lance is going to go back to 2013 Pacers, Lance? I got a tweet that someone thought that.
Well, what's funny is people kind of remember things the way they want to remember them. Lance wasn't a very good fantasy option even that year, just because he is so poor at the defensive categories. He doesn't shoot a lot of 3-pointers. So you're really and he didn't score enough points where that was a useful category. So he basically was only helpful in assists. So he was like the, 80th or 90th best player that year. Which is not to say he wasn't valuable, but he wasn't as good as everyone remembers him.
Wouldn't he be like a super poor man's version of like Rajon Rondo?
That's not a terrible comparison.
No, they can't really shoot, but he would get triple doubles.
But here's the difference: Rondo actually gets those defensive stats.
Yeah, Rondo gets steals. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So think about Rondo with less assists and less steals. What about on the Clippers side of things? Do you think this hurts Jeff Green's value, or is it about the same?
No, it's about the same.
I think he gets the same 28 minutes a game or whatever he's been getting.
Dude, it's Jeff Green, the ultimate tin man, the ultimate player with no heart. He's going to have games where you watch him, you're like, oh my God, he's the best player in the NBA. And then he's going to have other games where he plays 16 minutes and has 0 points on 3 shots. He's super inconsistent. So I mean, do I think he could potentially help the Clippers in like the real world? Probably, unless Doc screws it up, or he gets in Doc's doghouse, because Doc likes to get players and put them in his doghouse. So
that does seem like one of his favorite things at this point.
That's like his go-to move.
Yeah, it really is.
So, and plus Austin Rivers is coming back in 2 weeks, so you got to play Austin over Jeff Green for sure, right? But so I think in the real world, it's a bigger deal than the fantasy world.
I don't think it affects his value. Like, I think if you thought he was valuable before on Memphis, I think he plays a very similar role.
Well, all right. Did you think he was relevant in Memphis?
No.
Yeah.
I think he's a borderline guy. Like, I think he's fine to own. I don't think it's a bad idea to own him, but a lot of times I would want to own somebody who's more valuable than him.
I do think it hurts a guy like Wesley Johnson, and maybe this is more like DFS related. But I played a lot of Wesley Johnson tonight in DFS, But ultimately, I'm not overly excited here. Pretty
fantasy relevant or a fantasy friendly type guy is Wesley Johnson. I don't think a lot of people know that, but he puts up pretty good numbers across the board in limited minutes.
No, he steals, blocks, he does everything.
Threes, rebounds.
He's another. It's funny, man. He's actually a very similar player to Jeff Green. If you watch Wesley Johnson play, you'll be like, man, he's really talented. Like, and then it just, but he just doesn't put it all together.
Right.
Like she can shoot. If you watch him like shooting, some days, you're like, wow, that's like the best stroke I've ever seen. A really perplexing player.
And just for completeness, I'm going to run through the rest of the trades. You can stop me if you want to talk about these.
I did look up the definition of the word snarkle.
Okay.
I don't think that we should use that as the name of our podcast.
Did you look it up on Urban Dictionary?
Well, yeah. First of all, I don't even know if it's a real word. It did come up for Urban Dictionary, which, yeah, I think I can say this on the air. So here's what it means. I had no idea that's what it meant. Otherwise, I would not have used it. It means to fart underwater, then catch the underwater fart bubble in your mouth.
That's horrible.
Snarkle.
Oh, man.
It's like the most disgusting thing I've ever read. So so when I first looked this up, I forgot what player we were talking about, but I couldn't get this out of my head for like 10 minutes during the show. It destroyed me.
We'll have to find a new name for the podcast.
No. Agreed. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. So here's the smaller trades that happen. You can stop me if you care to talk about any of these. I don't think any of these make a bit of fantasy impact. Hawks, Jazz, and Bulls pulled off a 3-team trade. Shelvin Mack went to Utah. Justin Holiday went to Chicago, and the Hawks got Kirk Heinrich. You don't care. The only thing that's interesting to me here is that the Bulls only have one backup point guard, which seems like a risky move with Derrick Rose on your team.
I mean, I think I think the Bulls just did this because they want to trade back for Kirk Heinrich, so he could be back on the Bulls for the 17th time.
I'm surprised they would do that to him. Anyway, Brian Roberts got traded to the Blazers from the Heat. Brian Roberts was originally.
This is the best part about that. So Brian Roberts got like you said, got traded to Miami, right?
Right. He got traded from Charlotte to Miami to Portland.
Right. So when he got traded to Miami, he was about to practice with them. So the beat writers interviewed him, and he was saying, how he's so happy to be in Miami, the great organization, how he fits with the team, and then like a second after that, then he gets traded to Portland. So at least he had time for one in-depth interview for how he's going to help Miami.
Can you imagine what it's like to be some of these guys, and just the prospect of being traded is really bizarre. And I think what's even weirder is Dwight Howard, who was clearly shopped heavily for like a week straight, and now has to go back to work. Can you imagine if all you heard on our week off was that I was trying to trade you to a different podcast and trying to get a different host in here, and then I show up and say, "Hey, Daniel, sorry we couldn't trade you, but I'm excited to work with you again."
Well, yeah, no, it would be super bizarre, and I'm not sure how you would handle it. I mean, one big difference is they're making millions, or in Dwight case, like hundreds of millions. But yeah, no, it's entirely weird. Like the thing that I always wonder is behind the scenes, what are the GMs telling them? What is the GM telling Dwight Howard?
That's what I'm telling you. Daryl Morey has to go to him and be like, "Hey, I know that you heard all the speculation about you being traded, and we had to shop you. We were shopping you to every team, but nobody took you. So now back to work."
No, but my thing is do you think Daryl Morey will go to him, let's say a week or two ago and be like, "Look, Dwight, I just want to let you know, we are gonna look at some deals for you, and so if you hear some things, just don't really pay too much attention to it, but if we get the right deal, we might pull the trigger." Do you think that happens, or think no? It's just.
I think it entirely depends on the GM. I think Daryl Morey seems like a pretty open guy that would probably approach.
And I guess he'd be talking to Dwight's agent. I guess it would be the one that how it would work out. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be, especially in a case where Brian Robertson, you get traded 2 or 3 different times. It's got to.
I'm guessing Brian Robertson didn't have a lot of heads up.
Right, and I'm sure it's actually harder on the family, because I mean the players is probably their it's their whatever their job, and but it's got for the wives and then the kids and stuff. That's got to be hard.
Yeah, I totally agree. Jarnell Stokes got traded to the Pelicans for a second-round draft pick. He was on the Heat. Heat made a bunch of small moves to get under the luxury tax. That's why you're hearing their name a lot.
Yep.
And 76ers, Rockets, and Pistons made a trade. 76ers got Joel Anthony and a second-round pick. The Rockets got a player who I am not able to pronounce his name. It starts with Chuck. but there's more to it than that. And
I know when I saw that name, I was like, I thought Giannis was hard.
yeah, I have never heard that name's pronounced. I'm not familiar with this player.
It makes Antetokounmpo. Or how do you say Giannis' last name?
Antetokounmpo.
There you go. It makes that.
Yeah.
This seems like very simple.
It's the rights to a foreign player. Anyway, not a lot going on there. So anybody, I don't think there's anything we need to talk about from those small moves. Anything else you want to talk about the trade deadline before we wrap this up?
Not really, man. It overall was just a little disappointing. So I would say it was weird. I had 2 leagues where 0 moves were made on the waiver wire.
I think that's a fine reaction here. I think, again, probably the 2 players we talked about that you could pick up speculatively is Matt Barnes and Mario Chalmers.
Right. So I would say don't, just because I know it's a trade deadline and you're really eager to make a move, don't make a move just to make a move. Like it just didn't happen this year for the most part.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see how some of the rotations, work out in the first few games now after the trade deadline, see if any coaches take a different route. But for the most part, status quo, man. You're gonna have to build your team for the stretch run the old-fashioned way.
Yep. And just to wrap up what we talked about, so the most previous show that you and I did, we went through a list of players that we said, hey, speculatively maybe add these guys either to your watch list or your team to see if there's a move made. I think for the most part you can drop those guys. I'll go over the list really quickly, Dan, and you can tell me if any of these guys you think should not be dropped. Okay?
Yep.
So these are the guys we said add speculatively, but if they don't get traded, you're probably not going to want them all that much. Ben McLemore.
Drop, motherfucker.
Yep. Tyler Zeller and Kelly Olynyk. I don't think you're wanting to keep them in a standard league.
No.
Joffrey Riverne and Yusuf Nurkic, again, probably not doing much with. The Phoenix guys, Len, Teletovic, and Lur, I think are worth paying attention to, but I don't think any of them are must-adds as a result of the trade deadline.
I do think one thing I'll say, I do think one of them will emerge.
Right. It's just not clear. I think I don't even know if I agree with you there though. I think it might just be split between the 3 and you get nothing.
Dude, that's no fun. Come on.
I know it's no fun. I hope you're right.
Earl Watson, make one of them fantasy relevant.
Do it for us.
If you're Earl Watson, whoever's the worst out of those 3, that's who you got to play. Because the Phoenix needs a tank, and they need a shot at Ben Simmons.
Yeah, that's true. John Henson, if you picked him up hoping for something, you can drop him. Brandon Moore, I'm still waiting to see what happens with Memphis, but I'd be very surprised if he carves out a role that's standard league relevant.
Give me, in your opinion, give me Memphis starting 5 right now. Like who is?
Oh my goodness,
who are they going to roll out there? And literally, they may be rolling out players at this point.
I mean, I think it's definitely Zach Randolph and Mike Conley. And I would guess Matt Barnes. I think those are the 3 definites. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how they go from there. I would guess, I would guess Mario Chalmers starts, but it could be Tony Allen. I would assume it's one of those 2 as the starting shooting guard.
And even if Tony Allen starts, I think Chalmers is still going to be the more relevant fantasy player.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about that. It just depends on if they give him enough minutes to be relevant.
Right.
And I don't know, is it Brandon Wright as the starter and then they go small sometimes? I'm not real clear. Vince Carter get more minutes?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's really crazy. I mean,
Ryan Hollins, is it like sort of like a 3-headed monster with Ryan Hollins and JaMychal Green?
You went from Marc Gasol to a 3-headed monster of JaMychal Green, Ryan Hollins,
and Brandon Wright.
Right. Oh, dear God.
I would guess. I don't know if Chris Anderson has some juice in his legs. I don't think it's going to be pretty. All right, let's keep going here. Brandon Jennings, he obviously did get moved, but to a team with a point guard already. I don't think – definitely not a must-add, and I would be surprised if that turns into a fantasy relevant situation. Mario Chalmers, which I think we were right on. I think you're going to want to pick him up. Clint Capella, you can drop now. I think.
Dump it finally, Mark. Sorry, man.
No, I mean, I think I called it pretty well there that they were going to shop Howard, and they certainly did.
Yeah. No, I just mean sorry that we're not going to get to see Clint Capella have a legitimate shot at getting like 30 minutes a night.
And I don't think that's totally out of the question. Like if Houston falls out of the playoff race, I would not be surprised if they shut Dwight down. But until that point, I don't think you can keep holding on to this guy. And last guy on our list, the number one pickup was Dennis Schroeder. He was sort of, I think he just becomes a stream option. He's borderline relevant, but I don't think you're going to see the big breakout we were hoping for.
Yeah, super frustrating if you had Dennis and you were kind of hoping he was going to kind of be the key to your late season push here, because it's just not very hard.
I felt pretty confident that they were going to make a move. I was surprised Atlanta didn't. In fact, I was so confident in a league that I co-own a dynasty team with Josh Lloyd in. I made a move for Schroeder. I traded a future draft pick for him. So definitely disappointed there.
Yeah, no, I think that was worth the risk. I thought for sure Atlanta was going to try to get. I mean, everything you were hearing, they were going to try to get rid of Horford and Teague. So it's really baffling to see the lack of moves. Like you wonder kind of what really went down behind the scenes and why some of these teams didn't make any moves.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Dan, that's our show for today. Thanks everybody for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed having some basketball back in your lives and not just trade rumors. We will be back on Monday with a pretty normal show, I would think. We'll be talking about fantasy performances. I think following up on some of these trade deadline teams and seeing how the rosters and lineups shake out. But until then, just go enjoy watching some basketball. We'll talk to you again soon.
Later, guys.